day two, I'm gonna just give a knowledge about the C# programming and the basic syntax, classes, and other things. So let's start our session. So see, actually, here in C# programming, there are a few kind of syntaxes you need to follow to achieve a proper programming structure. Let's say that, like creating a class, object, member function, data member, data types, where to use keyword. So that kind of thing that I'm going to teach you on this session. So here, first topic is using keyword. So hope you all know that using keyword using as a keyword, it's generally used to add a namespace of a other class file to your current class file, which means that I will just show you. Okay, let's say if you see that the program here, program.cs, so what the thing is, using dot system is used. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is this console dot log, right? So let's say this console dot, I'm just deleting it. Okay, if you see that, you will get an error, which means that your console does not exist in the current context, which means that your console is being already been written in some other context, and you need to import it to consume it here. So what I'll be doing is I'll click on this icon, and it's gonna get you suggestion. Okay, let's say using system. You click on that, it automatically add that using to your thing. So it's generally a namespace. Okay, you are just adding that another context namespace, and namespace contains this console.writeLine method. Okay, so you are gonna call and you are gonna consume this so that it's gonna print your string which is given in the double quotes. So that is where the using keyword has been used. There are different kind of purposes of using keyword. Let's say one is to import the namespace, another one is to just make sure that you are utilizing the object within that using a block. Okay, before, after the using block, it automatically destructed your object. So which is kind of an advanced topic. I will teach you in real time when it is being used. So right now you can just keep that knowledge. So using can also be used to destruct an object. Whenever its consumption is completed, you can able to it automatically destruct the object memory. So that is also another purpose of using keyword within a block statement. So another thing is class. Okay, so generally a class is kind of a blueprint. I can say that, right? It's a definition. I'm just showing here. So it's kind of a blueprint of a specific object. Let's say if you take a class of a car, right? So what is variable? Steering is a variable, and wheel is a variable, gear is a variable, other switches are variable, right? So when you click on that variable, right, it's going to execute some other functions. That is called methods or functions, right? Let's say if you click on some kind of turning on your headlamp, so you are just switching on your light button. So it's gonna call your owning the light functionality in backend. So let's say your functionality will be what switch on the lights something. So it's gonna call that function. That function will have a set of instructions to on the lights. So generally these are all comprises of a class. So it can also be achieved. This can be accessed to a object. So generally in a class within the class. So that is known as a class. So another thing is variables. So hope you are know what is a variable. At least you could have some idea. Okay, so which means variable is kind of a container which generally gonna hold your values. Okay, so generally variables are of three types: class variable, member variable, local variable. Okay, a class variable. Let's say if let's say I'm gonna define a class variable here. Okay, So if you see that a class variable will always start within the class block with a static keyword with the return type of any return type and a variable name. Here this age is the variable name. It's generally gonna hold a value of integer type. Okay, so this is generally known as class variable, which means this is within the scope of a class. If the variable is a static one, then it is referred as a class variable. So member variable is nothing but a variable declared inside a method. Let's say uh, no, actually not in method, which means that within a class, but when it is called using an object. Let's say if you're gonna create an object for a class, I will show you that also. Okay, so using this, you can able to see I can able to access the age, right? So this is generally known as your member variable. That is your member variable. That means a variable declared inside a class, and when a class is instantiated, those variables will be a member variable. Let's say I'm just variable is being declared in a class, okay, and I'm just creating an object. Instantiating a class means you are just creating an object using new keyword. Your object is a p1. It is generally stored in a heap memory. Okay, so once all your method and its variables can be accessed using this thing, this keyword, that is this object. So once it is completed executing, so automatically it will call the destructor and clears their memory from a heap of that particular object. So generally you can able to access that member variable within that instantiated object. So that is called a member variable here. So local variable generally means you can create a functions. Let's say I'm going to create a function. Okay, let's say void is your method, right? I'm just declaring a string data variable. Okay, so which is gonna hold your hello.net. Okay, this is generally known as a local variable, which is local to your only your method void. So you can able to access your method. You can, which means you can able to call your method using this object which has been already created. So if you just call it, it is going to execute that method. It will call that method and it's going to execute this local variable of that method and going to print it in your console. So this is known as a local variable. So member functions, as I said, that member function is a method. It's going to already be associated with the class to perform some set of operations. Let's say the same thing. So this is a member functions. It is also known as member methods or functions, right? So generally it will have a syntax of public, that is your access specifier, public, private, protected. Generally public, private, protected are the access specifiers, which helps us to achieve the data abstractions. Data encapsulations, which means that we can able to restrict the particular method or a variable, okay, which can be accessed from outside your classes. Let's say if I'm going to use a private, so if you create another class files, you cannot able to access that particular variable. Even if you create import that class, and if you able to create an object for that class, and you cannot able to access that because it is being made private, so it is only available within the class. It cannot be accessed outside the class. So when a method or a variable is made public, then you can able to access a particular method or a variable. So outside a class by the parent class object. So that is called your public access specifier. Protected is nothing but you can keep a method or a variable protected, which means that only the class which has been inherited to the particular class, which means that if you just inherit a program to another class, so on that class only this variable and this method will be available. You can able to access that using that the program class object. So that is called an access specifier. Generally it will have a access specifier, let's say access specifier followed by a return type and your method name of any string. That's it. But should be meaningful to understand by other programmers also when they are gonna contribute to your solutions. So it could be better, it could be meaningful, if it could be meaningful. So access specifier, as said, it's generally private, public, protected, internal. So I have said that private is only for within the class. So public you can able to access the member function and variables outside the class. Protected is only being used when a class been inherited to that particular class. So whereas internal is generally being known to your assembly. Let's say assembly, which means while executing or importing. So you will have some assemblies will be running in your background to build applications. Okay. So it will know only that assemblies can just access this variables or a method name. Okay, so at that time we have to use internal, but maximum will be using these three. But I will show you when to use this in upcoming classes. So after that, instantiating class. So instantiating a class is nothing but creating an object, as I say that, right? So where instantiation means, let's say, see, instantiation generally deals with these two things. Let's say your class name and object name, which of anything. Okay, so which must be meaningful, equal to your new program, which generally what it's gonna do is gonna create an object in your heap memory, and also it's gonna call your default constructor. Constructor is nothing but it will also have a method of a same class name that is known as constructor. Let's say okay, so this is a method. Your method. This is a constructor, which means that this indicates a method, and this is generally of your both class name and your constructor name should be same. Okay, so which means that this is a default constructor. So when you create this new of the class name, it will automatically call your default constructor first, and you can able to execute some of the codes. Let's say if you want to load some of the data at the start of a class, right? So at that time you can able to call that a method, or you can able to do that coding part here. So when a class has been loaded first, it's gonna call your default constructor. So which means that your when a default constructor is called, all the codes within that is also be executed. Okay, so that is known as default constructor. And also the constructor is also having parameters constructor, which means that you can pass a parameter. Let's say if you pass some integer, space your age or mark. So generally it's gonna have a parameterized constructor. At that time, what you will be doing is you will be passing the same thing. Let's say we will be passing. Let's say I'm gonna pass age. Okay, so I'm gonna pass only one parameter. I'm gonna pass mark. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this. Okay, so if you see that, you will get an error. Okay, which means that there is no argument given that correspond to your required formal parameters, which means that now your default constructor is has been generally been called defaultly, but actually there's a parameter constructor has been declared by a user, which means that your instantiation requires to pass a parameter in this here. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm going to create a variable here. Okay, int m1 equal to 50. Okay. I'm going to pass this m1 here. You see that the value has been passed to your constructor from instantiating a class within your main method. Okay, I'm just passing the 15 to here, which means that this 15 will be available at here. Okay, at the time of loading a class, first you will be calling this. When calling this is happened, it automatically gonna call this. Okay, when running in this method, this solution, so it will automatically call this your parameters constructor, and you can just execute it, which means that, and let's say I'm gonna do this thing. I'm just okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna execute it. Okay, let's say I'm gonna save it. I'm going to read it. It will take some few seconds to build a project. If you see that your from parameters constructor. we see that the 15 has been printed. Okay, first it is going to call your parameter. So what it has done, it is just passing this m1 to your program by instantiating an object of that particular class. So I'm just passing that value from your main method. So what it is automatically calling this here is to your program, where this program what I'm doing is I'm doing a console.write line. So if you see that output, so first it's gonna print that from parameters constructor 15, then it's gonna call your method. What is the method? It's display. Okay. So this display is gonna print your string, that is your local variable, right? So I said, so this is a general where scenario where constructor and object is being used. Okay, so identifiers are nothing but let's say I'm going to give you a real-time example. Let's say how people can identify you. Let's say what is your identification? It may be your name, right? So name is the identification the same way. So here the identification is a name. Okay, let's say if you are having a integer value, so it's gonna put your age. Okay, give you a age. Okay, so where the age is your age is your identifier. Okay, so you can able to identify that value using that particular thing, which means see here this hello.net is your value, right? So how can I identify this hello.net using this message? It is a user defined name. Okay, then it is known as the identifier within your program. Okay, this is known as identifier. And keywords are generally a reserved type of meaningful thing. So let's say you cannot able to see integer. Generally, integer is a kind of a reserved type of meaningful. If you give int, it's gonna make your variable as an integer type. So you cannot able to change that, which will be written as a predefined set of operations to carry out a particular functionality. So if you give int, it's going to carry out a functionality by changing your current variable to integer type. So you cannot able to use that int as a variable name. So if you're going to use an int, give it, it's going to throw you error. See int, because int is a special meaning. Okay, that is a special keyword which has been written already to perform some set of operations. So that is known as keyword. So here you can't able to use a keyword as a variable name, as an identifier for in your program. So you have to give your own meaningful identifier. Let's say it's been age, so I'm going to give age. So this is known as keyword. So constants. So constants are generally something. Let's say if you want to have a constant, let's say what I can say this the values which been assigned to a constant variable will not be changed, which means it will be same throughout the program. Okay, once that value has been assigned to a constant variable, so you can able to use a constant variable. Okay, using this const. Okay, so which means that if you cannot able to change this age value in any method or within that any kind of block in that same program. Okay, it's gonna have your age as 15 only throughout this program. You cannot able to change it. So this is where the constant keyword is the where comes into picture. So let's say if you want to have some kind of static value, let's say you could have used in your college practicals way, like pi is equal to 3.1422 by 7, which means that you're gonna have it as a constant, right? Which that value is never be changed. Okay, so you can able to no one can able to change. So anyone is using a program, you will if you just make it as a constant, they cannot able to change that value at runtime or any in any blocks or any methods. So at that time constant come into picture and it helps us to maintain a sustainability throughout the program without changing that particular value of a variable. So where constant is used for that. So data types. So here where I'm gonna talk about the data types. So data types are nothing but kind of a type which is used to identify a value, what value is being assigned to a variable. Okay, let's say if you have a mark which is generally given by an integer, right? Integer means nothing but number. Okay, and let's say in height is generally being given as a decimal number, which is known as float data type in your C# program. Okay, so and also if you have a name is generally a string data type, which is denoted within a double quotes. Okay, so and also a character. Let's say character if a grade. Let's say if a grade is a character A, B, C, D, E. It's a character, right? So generally, if a grade can be implemented within a single quotes, within followed by a character, char space variable name equal to your single quotes value. So generally, it's going to denote your character value. Okay, so and also double is kind of where it can accept both integer as well as your float value. Okay, so where it is generally its memory size is long, it can take kind of double the integer value of both float and integer data types. And in terms of long is generally used for integer, for storing the integer value of a little bit longer number, which means that it can just store some of the values which is not being stored in using int data type. So where long comes into picture and we can able to store the data types into using long. So where that is the data types. So and also you can able to use there are int is having another thing. So let's say int is int 32. Okay, so and also int is a int 32. Okay, which means it's a signed integer. Okay, so it's gonna have a 32-bit of signed integer can able to hold it. And also another thing is int 64. Okay, so in 64 it's the same thing. So if you it's gonna reference 64-bit of signed integer. Okay, so generally int is of three types. One is normal one. So normal one is kind of it also gonna denote 32-bit of signed integer. Okay, so another one is in 32 and in 64. Okay, you can generally use int. Okay, and when it require more than a number that is more than the 32-bit, you can just go for a 64 or long. So that will be doing your needful thing while holding a value of a particular integer variable. Okay, so that's it for today's class. And next class, I'm going to discuss deeply on the creating different data types, which means how you can able to create data types of variables, and you can able to get a user input. How you can able to get a user input and convert it to a particular data type, and you're going to display it. And also, I'm going to teach you of OOPS concept, and also an overview of the how a Windows application will work. So I will just create a Windows application form, so where you can able to drag and drop your components and create a events, and you can able to get a value from that particular text boxes, and you can play with it. So to next session, so it will be completely of a little bit of advanced from this one. So this is the basic you require to understand that next session. So thank you all for kind cooperation.